In Chapter 6, we're going to create a depreciation schedule. When we create this depreciation schedule, we're going to use Excel, but we're going to use Excel to create a table within the spreadsheet. Okay, so we're going to start with a blank workbook, and I'm on page 164. So step 2 says enter City Music World in A1. So we're going to go to A1. And we're just creating the heading, so depreciation schedule. Step 3, type the fixed asset data in range A4 to A7. Include the accumulated depreciation header, but exclude its dollar amount. So if you look above step 1, there's a table there. And all they're asking us to do is to recreate that table. So as we type this information in, again, I'm not putting in the dollar signs and the commas. I believe we're going to do that later. We're going to skip the accumulated depreciation column. We're not going to put any data in there. And the really neat thing about Excel is that Excel has the ability to calculate the depreciation for us based on whichever method we want. Now in accounting, we learned how to calculate the depreciation based on straight line, double declining balance, and I know that I'm missing one and I can't think of it right off the top of my head. But what we're going to look at here in the Excel class is we're going to be able to have the computer do that part for us. So once we have our data entered, we're going to go to cell A4 where it says fixed assets. And we're going to turn all of this data that we just typed into a table. So come up here on your Home tab. There's a section that says Styles. And we're going to go to Format as a Table. We're going to come down here to the medium section, and they want us to choose the gold table. And it says gold table style medium 5. So when you put your mouse on it, it says table style medium 5. Excuse me. So we click on it and then click OK. And it creates a table out of the data that we just typed in. Okay, in our table, it gives us the different shadings for the rows. It gives us the different drop-down boxes that we can use to filter our information. And we're going to play with all of that in just a little bit. Now, with this table, we now have a new tab that says Design. And over here on the far left side, it says Table Name. So we're going to click in there. And we are going to name this Depreciation. Now, it doesn't allow spaces, so we're going to underscore and then type in the word schedule and press enter. So all we're doing is giving our table a name. Now the neat thing about the table designs is we can also change the way they look. So right here where it says table style options, we're going to put a check mark where it says total row, and that should add a total row to our table, which it did. Okay. We're going to go to cell C8. So obviously we're not going to have a total of dates, but C8 is the first one where we have a total. When we click there, we get this little drop-down arrow to appear. If I click on that drop-down arrow, I can choose some of those basic functions that we worked with in past chapters and click on the word sum, and it just automatically adds that for me, so I don't actually have to type in the equation. And I'm going to do the same thing for D8 as well. Again, click on the word sum, and it adds up the column for you. Now in E8, we don't really need the sum of the useful years, of the useful life, but we can find the average of it. So click on the arrow, and we're going to find the average useful life of our equipment, and it turns out to be 9.6. or 9.7 if you round. Excuse me. Table tools. There's also, in this design tab, we can do special things to different columns. So our first column here has the title of our fixed assets in it. If we put a check mark next to the box that says first column, it automatically makes that entire column bold no matter what we put in it. Now, sometimes we create our tables, but we might need another row stuck in there. Okay, so if you turn to page 166 at the bottom, it tells us we're going to add a fixed asset row and some more columns to the table. And we're also going to look and see how it would look if we were to print this table. So we're going to go to cell F7. And click on cell F7 and tap Tab. And it automatically gives us a new row. Okay. Okay, it wants us to enter the data into this new row. So if we look back at the beginning of these steps, it gives us some data to put in here. So it tells us that the first thing we're going to type in is studio furniture with a date of 1-1-2016, has a cost of $3,000, salvage value of $300, and a useful life of 9 years. Now, as you type those numbers in, and when I press enter on this cell, you can see our total row changes as needed. Okay. Now go to cell F8, and it says starting from cell F8, choose home, cells, insert. So we're going to go to home, cells, insert. And we would like to insert a column to the right. And we're actually going to do this 3 times. So insert table columns to the right. Now, a really cool feature of Excel is that if you press the F4 key, it will automatically do whatever it is you did last. Okay? So you can go ahead back up to insert table columns to the right 2 more times, or you can just press F4 twice and it'll redo whatever your last action was. Now it tells us that we accidentally put in 1 too many. So we're going to go to delete and delete table columns to get rid of one of them. So now we only have 2. So if you need to remove one, that's how we do that. We're going to cell G4, which currently just says column 2, and we're going to label this one depreciation expense. And then H4 is going to say year-end book value. Okay, and press enter. So now we have some new titles in there. Row 4, select the row 4 header. So we're going to come over here and click on the number 4 on the edge. And we're going to click on the word wrap text. And again, that's going to wrap your text down to multiple lines. We see that it cuts off our letters in the middle, so we're going to fix that. We want to change the width of column B. Hold down your control key. Column E. Keep holding that control key. G and H. And we're going to change the column width of those to 12. That's a little better. We're going to change the column width of column F to 14. And column D to 4. Now we're following their directions for setting column widths. Obviously we wouldn't know exactly which numbers to choose, so you can click and drag. If you put your mouse on these edges, you can click and drag until you figure out where it is you want them. Okay. Now when we set column D to 4, it kind of made the word salvage value look a little weird, but we're going to fix that here in a minute. With column D highlighted, okay, which we already have, choose Home, Cells, Format. So we're going to come over here to the right and click on the word Format. And we're going to go to Auto Fit Column Width. So click right here. And there it made it fit the right way so it doesn't look so smushed. Another thing you could have done was just come over here and double click between the D and the E, which we're going to do right now for A and B. So come over here between A and B and double click, and it will automatically make column A the width that it needs to be. We're going to do the same thing between rows 4 and 5. If you see row 4 had expanded because we had 3 lines of text before, now we only have 1. So we're going to double click between 4 and 5 and it automatically makes row 4 the right width. Okay. Now we're going to look at if we just wanted to print the table, if we wanted to leave the title off of it. You can go ahead and do this. We're not going to actually print it. We're just going to look at it. So go to File and click on Print. You can see what it looks like. We're going to change our orientation right here to landscape so that everything fits on the page. And where it says Print Active Sheets, we're going to say, did I choose the wrong one? Nope, that's right. Hold on, we got to back up a little bit. Click inside your table and then go to File Print. I apologize, I missed that step. When you go to Print Active Sheets, now it says Print Selected Table, so it will only print the table that you're clicked in. Okay. Go ahead and click the back button. We're going to go back and make some more changes to our table. You turn to page 169 at the bottom there. We're on those steps. So now we're going to start putting in our equations. So go to G5. Now, this entire table and all of these equations are based upon the fact that we are currently in the year 2017, which is when the textbook was written. Okay, so you can even come up here if that helps you see what it is and type that in. So keeping in mind that this textbook is currently in year 2017, so all of these depreciation numbers are calculated off of that year. Okay. So in G5, the first equation we're going to put in is one that's called sum of the year's digits. Okay. And what this does is it's going to give us our depreciation. So type in equals SY, and as soon as you see the Y, it tells you there, it returns the sum of year's digits depreciation of an asset for a specific period. So type in the D and put in your parentheses. And then your little hint comes up. The first thing it wants is the cost, right? So our cost can be found, turn the page. Our cost can be found in cell C5, comma, and then it wants the salvage value, okay, which is in D5, comma. It wants the useful life, which is E5, comma, and then it wants the period. Now the period is where that 2017 comes into play. We know that the textbook thinks it's currently 2017. The date of acquisition of this office furniture was 2013. So 7 minus 3 is 4. So we're going to type in the 4 and press enter. Okay. Now because this is set up in a table, it automatically populates that equation into every cell underneath that one. Which means that all of these equations are tied together. Here's the problem with that. If you go to cell G6 in the piano row, this one was acquired in 2008, which was a lot longer ago. Okay, it was 9 years ago. If we come up here to our formula bar and change that 4 into a 9 and press enter, it changes everything. Okay, because they're all attached. If we come up to the top and click our undo button, it's not going to undo the change that we made, but if you click on your equations and you look here, it did change our numbers back. Okay? So that one undo click, made it so that our equations are no longer completely tied together. Okay, so in G7, our equipment was purchased in 2015, which was 2 years ago, so we have to change that one to a 2. And in G8, it was purchased in 2016, which was 1 year ago. So we're going to change that one to a 1. Now, go back up to G5. We said that this equation calculates the sum of the year's digits depreciation. So what if we changed our minds and we want to use double declining balance? Okay. Now, this is pretty easy. Come up here to your formula bar take out the SYD and type in DDB for double declining balance and press enter. And it automatically does it. However, in the previous step, we removed that issue where everything was tied together. So unfortunately, we have to go through and change each one. So go ahead through and change each double declining balance. And now we have our depreciation based on double declining balance. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight cells G6 to G8. Oh, I'm sorry. G5 to G8. I read the wrong direction. And press your delete key on your keyboard. We're going to take all that out because we're going to start over because we have quite a mess there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to do the straight line. Okay. So type in equals. The straight line SLN is what we're going to use for straight line depreciation. So once you type in SLN, it says returns the straight line depreciation for an asset for one period, which is exactly what we're looking for. We put in the opening parenthesis. Our first hint there says it wants the cost, which is in C5, comma. Salvage is in D5, comma, and useful life is in E5. Press enter, and you have straight line depreciation. And again, because we deleted everything we did before, it automatically tied all those cells back together again. Okay. Go to cell F5. Accumulated depreciation is where we're going to calculate how much depreciation we have as of right now. Okay, accumulated depreciation calculates how much depreciation we have as of right now. If we flip back one page, you can see there's a chart there that tells us our current accumulated depreciation for each item, and we're going to need that chart here in a minute. So step 13 tells us to type in our equal sign, 1,500 plus G5, okay? So we're taking our current accumulated depreciation before we calculated this year's, which was $1,500, and adding in the depreciation expense we just calculated, and press enter. And again, when you did that, it automatically did that for each cell. The problem with that is if you look back to page 169, you'll see that the beginning accumulated depreciation is not the same for every asset. Okay? So we need to undo that act of tying them together, that act of filling in the blanks. Okay? And then we're going to finish filling these in. Now, here's another way to do this. Instead of undoing that, just come in here to your formula bar and change this number. So this one should have been 8,000. Oh, look, remember it ties them together? So now if we click undo, it shouldn't. It should keep them together. Okay, so this one should have been 2,000. And this one should have been 0. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is fill in our year-end book value. So this one is going to be, we're in cell H5 equals C5 minus F5, right? Because C5 tells us our cost minus our accumulated depreciation gives us our year-end book value. Now you'll notice that as I'm doing this, I'm typing in all of these equations, C5, F5. I'm not clicking on them, okay? If you're more comfortable using your mouse, you can click on them instead of typing in the actual letters and numbers. Once you have that typed in, press enter, and again, it automatically fills that down for you. If you go to cell F9, and you look up in your equation bar, it's using a subtotal. We're going to change that, so click the arrow and choose sum. So that just adds up that sum of our accumulated depreciation. And do the same thing for G9 and H9. We just want them to give us a total. So just change those to sums. Okay, flipping over to page 173. Now we're going to play with some filters and filtering out some information that we may or may not need. So on page 173, again, we're going to be doing some filtering. So we're going to go to cell B7. B7 is where we find the year that we acquired our equipment. On your ribbon, we're going to click on the Data tab. And in the Sort and Filter section, we're going to sort this from oldest to newest. So all we're doing is sorting our date of acquisition data. So we're going to click on the A to Z, and it sorts from the oldest to newest. So the piano is the oldest piece of equipment that we own, the oldest asset we own. The studio furniture is the newest. Now go to E4. E4 is our useful life. If we click the drop-down box, here we can say we only want things with useful life with certain useful lives. Okay, we're going to remove the check mark next to the number 12 and then click OK. So it's going to only show us the items that have a useful life that is not 12 years. And you'll notice when we did that, all of our equations in our total row also changed. Our equations didn't change. All of our data, our ending totals changed. Another way we can do this, if we come up here, we have it looks like a funnel, okay? This is our filter button. If we turn this off, go ahead and click on it, and it's going to turn off your filter, and that brings all of your data back to you. Okay. Go ahead and click on that again to turn our filters back on. You'll notice when we clicked on it again, our 12 didn't disappear, but it just gave us our drop-down boxes back. We're going to H4. Click on that arrow next to H4. And where it says Number Filters, put your mouse on the word Number Filters. And choose Custom Filter, which is all the way down at the bottom. So we want to change this equals to be greater than, is greater than, and we want to find everything that has a year-end book value greater than $3,000. So type in greater than 3,000 and click OK. And you'll see we only have one, and that is the piano. Okay, I apologize. I had to go back and check because the book said we were supposed to have two. I only came up with piano. I had typed in the cost of the equipment incorrectly. So you should have two on your screen there, piano and equipment. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab A4 to H9. Okay, so click on A4 to H9. So you're pretty much just highlighting everything you see. Now, if you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll notice that the data that we've typed in hasn't disappeared. It's just not showing. You'll see that your rows go from 5 to 7 and from 7 to 9. Okay, so that data is still there. It just hasn't, it's just hidden it from your screen because you have that filter on. Now, once we highlight these, we get this little box to appear in the bottom right-hand corner. And if you put your mouse on it, it says Quick Analysis. So we're going to go ahead and click on that button. And it gives us a nice, fast way of getting to some of our different ways that we can look at our data. We're going to create a chart. So click on the word Charts. And then we're going to click on the word More. Okay. At the top, it gives us some recommended charts. We're going to go to the tab that says All Charts because we want to create a pie chart. So click on the word pie. And then click OK. And then we have this chart that appears on our screen. We're going to click and whoops. We're going to click on that chart. Oh my goodness, it won't let me do this. We're going to click on the chart. There we go. And drag it so it's underneath our data somewhere. Now, when we created this chart, we have these two new tabs. We have a Design tab and a Format tab. Okay. On the Design tab over here in the Data section, we're going to go to where it says Select Data. And we only want the data for A4. So come over here and click on A4 to A7. And we also want H4 to H7. So hold down your Control key. And then click on H4 to H7. And if your box is over, you can click and drag and move this box around. Okay, if it's in your way. Once you've chosen A4 to A7 and H4 to H7, click OK. And you can see our chart now makes a little more sense. In the H4 section, you can see our drop-down box now has the filter picture on it. Go ahead and click there, and we're going to clear this filter. So right here there's a button that says Clear Filter from Year-End Book Value. Click there. And now our chart has all of our data instead of only the two that we were showing before. Okay. However, when we did this, we set it to be A4 to A7, and now we have an 8 in there. Okay. So we're going to go back to our chart. Click on your chart if you don't have your chart tabs. Go back to your Select Data, and we're going to change this number 7 to an 8. And do the same thing on the H side. Change the 7 to an 8. Click OK. So now it's using all of the data for all of the fixed assets instead of just the ones we highlighted before. Okay, so now we're going to come up and go from C5 to D9. And we're going to put in our number formatting. So click on your comma and decrease your decimal. And do the same thing for F5 through H9. Okay, comma, decrease your decimal. And we're not going to do E, obviously, because that's counting our years. Okay, so make sure you've saved your work and you can go ahead into your assignment. Have a great week.